Welcome to our continuing series of virtual voices focusing on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Our topic today will be the WIT internship and experiences during COVID-19, their look toward the future we want. Our former interns are as follows. Ms. Suzy Hallak, who is our host, who is also a consultant on strategy and transaction at Ernst Young, and the corresponding secretary and regional director for Middle East and USA. Ms. Ariel Granat, executive director of RSO Foundation and WIT's regional director. And Mr. Apurv Gupta, who is the strategy manager for UN affairs in Accenture, and also WIT secretary of the board. We are also joined by Leonie Gahn, who is from Germany and who has been one of our interns during the COVID-19 pandemic. Over to you, Suzy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Durbak. I'm going to quickly introduce myself, my background, talk about my experience interning and volunteering for WIT, and my reflections on navigating COVID and the outlook as we work toward a future we want. So without further ado, as Dr. Dervac mentioned, my name is Suzy Hallak, and I'm on the board of the World Information Transfer as the corresponding secretary and serve as the regional director of the US and Middle East. I'm also strategy and transactions consultant at EY-Parthenon, which is a global strategy consulting firm. And I'm based in Hoboken, New Jersey, and Hudson Yards, New York in the US. It's so nice to be speaking to all of you. I studied finance, global studies, and corporate communications at Bentley University, and I'm still involved with the school as a regional alumni board member, and I help organize previous and current Bentley students in-person events in New York City, now virtual due to COVID. So now a bit about my experience interning with WIT before I became a board member and regional volunteer. I interned with WIT for 4 summers throughout high school and college. My experience was exceptional, and I loved collaborating with interns from all over the world, attending meetings at the UN headquarters in New York, writing for and editing the intern newsletter, the Ecology Inquirer, and the World Ecology Report, which I'm sure many of you have read on our website. This internship experience sparked my interest in international affairs, global environmental sustainability, and human health. I took learnings from WIT with me to university when I took Model UN course in college, studied global studies, and edited and wrote for the honors program newsletter, and then after graduation. So very thankful for the learning experience I was able to apply to college. Then after graduation, I started working in consulting at EY and continued to volunteer with WIT as a regional director and board member. And I was even given the opportunity to attend COP23 in Bonn, Germany, and COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland as a representative. Attending both of these climate change conferences was exceptionally eye-opening for me. I was given the opportunity and privilege to observe how global leaders, organizations, companies, and entire nations have been involved with combating climate change and helping preserve our planet, which is the one thing that unites absolutely all of us. I love seeing people come together and was able to see this happen at a very large scale at COP23 and COP26, seeing both private and public sector organizations come together to serve a single purpose was so powerful and made me realize that I wanted to apply all of the learnings from WIT, Bentley, EY to problem solve and contribute to impactful projects such as helping organizations and in turn people transition to more sustainable investments, practices, products, and resources. So a bit about navigating the COVID pandemic and some reflections. The pandemic impacted the way I work for sure, in terms of training, learning, getting up to speed on client projects, client interaction via Zoom, Teams, phone call, teaming with other consultants to produce the best results for our clients, and networking all became remote. And all via my laptop, sitting at home rather than at the office. I used to travel Monday through Thursday every week to client sites, which I loved. And I commuted every day from New Jersey to New York, spent lots of times on trains, airplanes, airports, and cars. And then all of a sudden I was working extensive hours from the same spot every day, very close to where I sleep every day. So although remote working causes us to minimize the amount of commute and travel time, which is great for personal health and for the environment, and is also more productive. Initially, it was difficult and a bit of a struggle to separate between work and home life. So for many people, it impacts them from a mental and physical health well-being that way. I coped with this by setting boundaries for when I was going to log off, saying no to things when I didn't have the bandwidth, using organizational tools and resources, implementing agile management practices, and talking to mentors, friends, and family to get me through this big adjustment and all of the challenges to work in a professional remote setting. The pandemic also impacted me personally. I love traveling, seeing friends and family, planning events, gatherings for college alumni, really getting to know people in person. So it was tough for me at first to spend time in isolation at my parents' house for a long time. However, I took the opportunity to spend quality time with my family, who I love very much, be intentional about when I get together with people in person and with whom, and really valued trips and gatherings I was able to have after getting vaccinated. I now make it an effort to see people I really care about in person, and it takes a bit more work, but you can be really intentional about who you see. And while also making sure I have enough time to dedicate to myself and my work. So now with virtual tools, you can really say no to things and make the time for you to prepare for your assignment or take care of yourself. The other part that was difficult during COVID was my family is from Lebanon, and we were gravely impacted by the Beirut blast and the explosion that impacted so many people's lives. And we lost my grandmother during the explosion. Many people lost family members, or their relatives and friends and loved ones were destroyed during this grave crisis that happened during a global pandemic. So we couldn't really get together or mourn this shocking tragedy, but we did it virtually. And we were there for each other virtually and were able to donate virtually. So organizations like that donated to people in Lebanon were really, really great, like the Red Cross. Thankfully, we leveraged these tools, stayed connected, and got together, but it was definitely a difficult challenge to navigate in the virtual world. So reflecting on all of these challenges, which have all ultimately made me stronger, and I know collectively everyone's been going through lots of professional and personal challenges and have been growing stronger every day as well. So that's great to think about. I reflect and look toward a greater outlook as we work toward the future that we all want together. So I've shared past professional and personal experiences with WIT, Bentley, EY, and throughout COVID. And now we talk about the next steps. So everything in life is about finding balance. That's one of the key takeaways I took from COVID, is going through experiences like a global pandemic where everything was done in extremes and in isolation has reaffirmed this notion that balance is so critical. People need to find balance navigating both in-person and virtual experiences to become successful, happy, healthy, and create a positive environment for future generations. So once we learn how to navigate these and find our center, we're able to accomplish great things. Next, as exemplified at COP26, the true power we have is in fostering strong collaborative partnerships across all sectors, both public and private, and embracing technology and innovation to achieve sustainable development goals together as one. This is one thing that really unites every person, no matter where you're from, what you do. This is our planet that we protect all, and it impacts all of us from a business standpoint, from a social standpoint, a family standpoint, and for future generations. So it's very amazing to see how these partnerships and collaboration can achieve one common goal and purpose as we work together. So now I'm really excited to work in an industry where I can learn how to solve strategic problems, apply those skills to critical global issues, and impact absolutely all of us, and helping clients build out their ESG agenda, transition to more sustainable practices, investments and products, and allocate funds from developed to developing nations who need support with the global transition to greener and more sustainable resources and processes is exactly where I'd like to go next. So I was feeling a bit lost during the pandemic, as many of us probably were, and any interns who are still trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. I was going through that as well. But going through and navigating some of these personal and professional challenges, and joining webinar sessions like this and volunteering with the World Information Transfer, all of these have helped me to kind of find what is the actual purpose and where do I want to apply my work and learnings going forward. So we're all much stronger together coming out of this. And as we learn and read and learn how to leverage tools and resources, we can work together to achieve really great things. So that's my outlook going into 2022. And now I'll turn to Ariel to provide a bit about her experience and her outlook going into the year and coming out of COVID.
Thank you, Suzy, and thank you, Dr. Durbak. So I want to start with my reflections on my experience as an intern. And I think I've had a little bit of a unique experience with WIT because I've been a two-time intern with them. You know, we are in a world where attention and our ability to consume information has become shorter and shorter. And within both of those two times, I was able to learn how to condense information and still make it relatable and important and get out the needed facts in a way that is so critical for the type of new generations that are coming up in this social media era. And so WIT has really taught us, you know, through a lot of practice, through the transcriptions, through the WERs, through our blogs, you know, how to relay the most important information. And in this way, it was through a 300-word maximum blog, summing up a 3-hour meeting. And now with TikTok, it's a 15-second maximum where you have to get out, you know, what people are now taking in as their main source of news. Along with that, my internship has served me with a great passion for the world, which has led me into my job now, which I'll get further into when I'm doing my reflection about the pandemic. But it also taught you how to evaluate misinformation. How do you evaluate what's misinformation, disinformation, and what's factual? And how do you find that factual information? Right now, more than ever, that has proven so useful as we are in a pandemic of both unfortunate health and misinformation. And so for all of the interns that are continuing or that are coming in, this is going to prove you with critical skills to be able to evaluate the world and the information that's all around you and how to get out what's really needed for people to understand the best way to go about things like the pandemic, like climate change. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about how my internship and my experience with WIT, as I kind of before served a role similar to Suzy, and then how it also has further impacted my view in my work now. So for COP26, that was the first COP I had ever been to, and it was also the most interesting in that we had all come together after 2 years of such a different world, and people were able to stay positive. They were able to stay willing and passionate about change, and the amount of civil society that had turned out was immense. Every day there were protests, every day there were people participating in the conferences, still trying to make this change that it seems like is so hard to come by with a lot of diplomats and with where we're at within the UN. Along with that, the amount, for me, I'm in the animal welfare world. And so the amount of animal welfare and biodiversity groups that were there as well and had turned out was incredible. From Impossible Foods to World Wildlife Fund, they're working on creating a plant-based world where people will kind of become more reflection on the meat industry and how impactful that is into sustainability and also into animal welfare and how people are treated, how animals are treated, and it will hopefully just create more awareness overall. So I want to now transition into working through the pandemic. When I had originally when the pandemic first started, I was supposed to go to Bangladesh to work with the Rohingya refugees. That entire interest had sprung from my experience at WIT, where I was able to go into conferences about the Rohingya, understand more about their psychosocial models, how they have traditions in their religion that creates so much tension with the trauma that's going on. And so it really fueled me to want to make a change there and to try to help. But what I came into was that, when the pandemic happened, COVID really took a hard hit on that refugee population in the Cox's Bazar area. And so I had to postpone my trip and my idea of what was going to be my job. And I ended up falling into animal welfare and my now current foundation, where we're really focusing in on the treatment of animals, vet care, accessible vet care, and some of the things that we're trying to do now because of COVID. There have been a rise of adoptions. And in the beginning of the pandemic, it seemed like animals were a great companion, like it was, very helpful for the mental health uprise that was happening in society. But now that we're reaching a time where people are going back to work, there's an uptick in animal release and now euthanasia. And so what my organization is really trying to focus on is, one, accessible spay and neuter to low income areas, but also, providing education on what to do if you're going to bring an animal home. How do you best take care of it? And how do you make sure that you have the proper resources? The other thing that we're both doing and that WIT has done a fantastic job on throughout the pandemic is utilizing the internet and utilizing social media. Social media has become a place that every young person has turned to as their main source of learning, unfortunately, and as their main source of just daily interaction. And so with these WIT webinars and with what my foundation is doing social media challenges, making you feel like they want to be engaged in social progress rather than engaged into an influencer's lifestyle, it ends up hopefully creating more of a dynamic of social want and desire for youth to participate and give back. And so that, I think, leads me into the future that we want moving forward and how much both of those things have combined into, we want people to be passionate about making our planet better. And where we're at with these webinars and where we're at with these social media initiatives that both WIT is doing and that my foundation is doing is we're utilizing finally these platforms that have a widespread impact to billions of people. And we have a chance for the first time in history to really get out and to have people get engaged in a way that we can help educate them and in a way that we can help them educate others. So it's a very, very exciting time to, be a part of WIT, to be a part of this United Nations world, and to get to learn about, like I had said, misinformation, to learn about how do you disseminate that? How do you go about and get out your information in a way that's easy, in a way that's digestible to anyone, because that is the world that we're in now. So thank you very much for having me on, Dr. Durbak and Suzy, and I look forward to the questions.
Well, thank you, Ariel and Susan. That was wonderful introductions. And I would like to ask you some of your recollections on how you felt during your internships, because both of you have had more than one, and therefore you have had extensive experience in dealing with UN personnel, with the secretariat, with other interns. And I think that that is something very valuable for other young people to know, to what extent an internship that can change and moderate their lives can influence and their perceptions, their thinking, and their future progress. So over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Dervac. That's an excellent question. And reflecting now, I was only 16 years old when I first did my first WIT internship. And that was the first of 4 summers that I spent with WIT and attending meetings at the United Nations headquarters. I collaborated, it opened my eyes so much, first of all, because I came from a small town in Emerson, New Jersey. I only met people within my family, my small town. My perspective in life was very limited because any problem I faced, I was thinking of it from someone like it was the end of the world. But once you take a step outside of your bubble and you meet people from all over the world, you learn about global issues. You start to realize, wow, this is just a microscopic point in the world. There's so much going on. And so I was able to learn about these issues every day by attending sessions, 8 to 5 p.m. And then I also met and worked with our Hong Kong interns. I met and worked with interns from Kenya. And I was just learning so much about how different people like to work and operate, and what was really important to them. What did they want to get out of their internship was also different from me. So I really took a lot out of that experience, just being able to work with people from all over the world, attend session related to global topics, and truly immerse myself in issues and solutions that I never even had heard of. So that brought me back to working with WIT for 3 more summers after that. And each summer I learned more and just kind of added on. First summer, I was learning, how does the UN even work? And what is the purpose of attending these sessions? And why do we have representatives from everywhere? Then the next, you learn and understand how the UN works. Then you start to learn and understand what the different issues and policies and procedures are, and how are people really, once you understand what the issues are, how are people really resolving them? So those were truly important learnings for me. And I took that with me as I started my career and university, and learned how to learn. So very thankful for the experience. And now I'll turn to Ariel to kind of give a bit of her perspective.
Thanks, Suzy. Yeah, so similar to Suzy, I also did the internship firstly when I was around 16. And I had come from a small town in Illinois that was very, very homogeneous, and we were all very much so the same, and so the beliefs were the same, and it was just a very small bubble of awareness. And then it popped when I did my first internship at the UN, because I started to be able to be exposed to different types of cultures and different people in different areas of thought that I had never seen before or comprehended. And so my first internship, similar to you, Suzy, was used primarily to really observe and understand the UN, understand how it works to, have these question and answers with speakers, go up to people, what networking even is. And then my second internship, I really began to have the ability to ask questions, to want to inquire about things, to feel confident about going up to speakers at the end of their conferences and asking them for their connections, asking them to work together. And it's served me very well in my connections now with my job. And the same thing with the internship program, in that I have, lifelong friends now from both of these programs, and that they have both supported me in my work, I've supported them in theirs. And at the UN together, we were able to experience and work together to share, our most collective understanding of what's going on and how to do better. And so I still talk to these people every month. And I think that that's what it's really done a wonderful job, is that no matter where in the world the interns are, you're always going to have those connections, and you're always going to have the tools that WIT has given you to really investigate, understand, and get out the right information to the world.
I believe that we have Leonie Gahn online, and so perhaps we can get her to share her experience. Glad to see you. So I was hoping that you'll be able to talk a little bit about your experience as an intern, and of course, don't forget to add about your extensive trip to Europe on a bike.
Yes, I'd be happy to. So yeah, I think that my internship was maybe a little bit different to what the other interns experienced, because it was during one of the first lockdowns. So I did my internship not in New York, but from home, from my room in Dresden, in my apartment. And well, obviously, everything that was happening at the UN was about COVID. Like everyone was talking about it, all the meetings, everything touched on it. And that was quite interesting. And to be there at that exact time, because I could really, well, see how the world and how the world leaders reacted to a pandemic. And I got inside views into really interesting meetings, which was, well, yeah, it was really exciting. Also, even after I finished my internship, I was able to still get different perspectives on issues that really interested me. For example, when I was writing my bachelor thesis, I wrote it about the draft convention on the right to development, which was a draft, a new draft of a new human rights convention. And while I was writing it, and while I was writing a legal analysis of it, they were actually negotiating the exact draft at the UN. And well, World Information Transfer helped me to get into the meeting and to actually listen to what people were saying about the draft, and the people who were drafting it, what they were thinking when they were writing a certain paragraph, and what certain countries were thinking about it. And that was a really special, well, yeah, special experience, because it gave me a lot of information that I wouldn't have gotten without this access that World Information Transfer gave me.
Was that the only revelation that you have had? Because your trip was so extensive. Seems to me that you must have gleaned a tremendous amount of impressions from all the people that you met.
During my trip on the bike?
Yes.
Yes, I did. So I started in Barcelona, and then I drove my bike down the whole coast of Spain. It was just me, my bike, and my tent, and it was a really amazing experience. I met some exciting people, but actually, I think what was more interesting is that I discovered a lot about myself, because I was for so long on my own, just in the nature. And yeah, I really had time for my own thoughts, and I really learned a lot about myself. I think that was even more important than meeting new people. Yeah.
Yes, I was sorry you were not able to join both Suzy and Ariel and COP, but then on the other hand, your experience was pretty much unique, traveling all around. I know Spain very well. I went throughout the Spain, also in Portugal, and it's a very interesting country. And so there's a lot of different experience. Do you speak Spanish?
Yes, yes, I do.
Oh, well, that helps. I do not. So, but I do fine with other languages. But basically, that was the only handicap because not everybody spoke German or English or Ukrainian or some of the other languages that I speak.
Yeah, it was a great advantage.
And do you have any questions, Suzy, that you can ask Leonie?
Yes, thank you so much, Leonie. We have some questions from the audience. So what was the most exciting experience for you during your internship?
Okay, let me think about that for a second. There was so much going on. I think it was when I was when I was doing the internship, Fred sent me a link to like an extra event that was hosted by the Human Rights Council, I think, and it was on like an extra meeting, and that was really exciting. It was kind of about the connection between the situation of refugees, human rights, and climate change, and that's actually a topic that I've been focusing a bit on in my studies, and it was really exciting to get this inside view, and I was like so excited. It was, I think, my first week, and I was really excited to have this opportunity to actually get inside a meeting that's only supposed to be for like experts and ambassadors and people who work at the UN, and they are just sitting in my room in Dresden and getting all this extra information. I was really glad to have that opportunity.
That's amazing. And I agree. I loved meeting all of the UN representatives, learning about what they do. And that was a really cool part of the internship program. Ariel, we have some people asking, and I also am curious to hear more about your work with helping animals. What is the most fulfilling part of your job, and what do you do? One attendee said that they love animals very much, and that there are kind people like you helping them. So would love to hear a bit more about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So our foundation really ranges a good amount in that, you know, we're trying to focus on helping rescues. So a lot of people that will do the actual rescue of animals, from dogs and cats to, you know, wildlife, you know, lions, elephants, giraffes, songbirds, to farm animals. We're really trying to kind of focus on all of those different areas. But with the programs that we're doing right now, we're trying to address the spay and neuter issue within California first, in that we have a rampant overpopulation right now of dogs and cats because there are not a lot of resources out there for low income areas. And so what we're doing is we're creating mobile vet vans that will provide free vaccinations and free spay and neuters to cats and dogs. And eventually we're going to expand that to farm animals. And we're going to try to do free vaccinations in vet care, also working with different types of wildlife foundations moving forward as well. So that's the medical side of what we're doing, but we're also creating collaboration programs. Because one thing that we've noticed with a lot of these animal organizations is that there's been a dynamic of competition rather than collaboration. And so we're creating one of the first platforms of its kind that will enable rescues to work with each other. So let's say that, you know, for one rescue, they'll have an overcapacity of animals and they'll say, okay, we are at our tail's end. What can we do? Then another rescue will post that they have an availability, and it will be a new type of social media for rescues. So kind of, again, going back to my social media work and putting that in there. But yeah, we're just trying to educate more as well, use these different platforms to give people more of a voice about their passions in animal welfare, and hopefully just get more people on board with it. So that's a little bit about my work there. Thank you, Suzy.
Thank you so much. That's so interesting. Leonie, I was wondering if you could maybe help with this question we received. So given that you did your internship remotely, someone was asking, how can students make internships better and benefit as much as possible during the pandemic? Like, what are ways that you think we can make internships as engaging as possible virtually?
Well, yeah, that's a really good question. So I think when I did my internship, everyone at World Information Transfer and also myself, we had to adjust ourselves very quickly because it wasn't supposed to be remote. All this time we were still hoping that I would be able to get a visa and be able to go to the US. So we had to, well, kind of just, go with the flow and just find out what works best. Actually, what I really liked was that I was given tasks at the beginning of the week, and then I could do them in my own time until the end of the week, which made it a lot easier for me because there was a huge time difference. And otherwise, I would have had to work well into the night every day. So that was really good for me. Also, of course, a great advantage was that the UN was also working remotely. So I could still go to every single meeting. What I couldn't do probably as much as other interns was to network. Well, at least not at the UN, because it was just the meeting and then it was over. And then I was again on my own in my room. But there were certain other meetings that were more interactive, and World Information Transfer always made sure to give me access to those. And so there were meetings where you could like go into different rooms that were all on your screen, and then you could like just randomly chat with people. So that gave me also a chance to network. So I was really happy with the way we did it. And yeah, so I think when doing an internship remotely, you would probably have to, my experience was that I had to, work kind of in a self-reliant way, because depending on how much of a time difference you have, and when you're doing things, for example, when I was working in the morning and I had a question, I knew that I couldn't really ask it for like another few hours because nobody in New York would be up. So I kind of had to become self-sufficient, but also, I think it was really great that Word Information Transfer really showed me that they had a lot of trust in me and gave me the chance to do everything in my own time and at my own pace. So that worked very well. And I hope it worked well.
Incredible.
So too.
Yeah, the point you make about being self-sufficient, but paired with an organization that really supports your learning and growth is critical. So I agree with that. And the self-sufficient part that you mentioned kind of goes into the next question, where the participants asking, during distance work or internship, it becomes more difficult to make new acquaintances and meet new people and network, like you said. Are there any tips on how to deal with the lack of communication during a pandemic? So maybe, Leonie, like what I'm learning from you is kind of just taking the effort and the initiative to meet new people by leveraging collaborative tools online and reaching out is probably a great way. Do you agree with that? And are there any other tips you could make?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I would really stress that you have to really reach out to the people. So for example, what I did when I talked to people in chat rooms and during certain online events, I would afterwards contact them on LinkedIn, for example, and be like, hey, it was a nice chat, but it was just like a really short period of time. Why don't we have another call for like during the weekend or whenever? And that helped me stay in touch with them, because if you meet someone during an online meeting, then your face is on their screen for like a few minutes and then it's gone. And it may be hard for them to remember you afterwards. So it's always good to make the effort and to contact them if you're really interested in what they're doing.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And sorry, what yet another for you, because it kind of goes hand in hand, which is can online communication completely replace offline communication in your opinion? Like you mentioned some great ways that you've kind of coped and leveraged communication tools, but do you think that we can go completely in one direction over the other?
That's a good question. And I think it depends on what exactly the question is, because it feels like there's two questions in there, like could we or should we? For me, that's kind of a difference, because depending on how the pandemic, on how the situation is going to evolve, we may have to, and we may not have another option. And I think it's possible to work well remotely, but I'm not sure if I would if the possibility is there to actually meet in person, if I would prefer to do things online, because well, quite often well, just conversations, especially in big groups, may be a bit different when you're having them online, because you're just looking at the person that's speaking. For example, if we were all sitting in one room right now, I could be seeing all your faces and I could see how you react to what I'm saying. But at the moment I cannot. So it's I'm not really getting an immediate reaction to what I'm saying, and that makes it more difficult. Yeah, but oh, hey, now I'm seeing some faces. But nevertheless, I think that it's possible to do really good work remotely, and it actually saves us from having to fly everywhere, which is really great.
Yeah, completely agree with everything you're saying. I know, especially the part about like just noticing what other people's reactions are in a room, or naturally, if you try to say something and accidentally interrupt the other, it's a bit more awkward virtually versus in a room where you can see the body language. But we've been able to do it. So, and I see we have Apurv Gupta here who joined us, who's another WIT intern. Welcome, Apurv. Did you want to kind of introduce yourself and give a bit about your WIT internship experience?
Of course. Hey, Suzy. Hey, Dr. Durbak. It's really nice to be here, and welcome to everyone who's joining from all corners of the world. I know the Virtual Voices series just, it pulls everyone together. And my name is Apurv Gupta, everyone. I'm living in London now. I was a WIT intern in 2013, 2014, and 2016. So a World Information Transfer veteran, if you may. And it's just been such an incredible experience working with World Information Transfer. The first internship that I did, one was exposed to the way the United Nations functions, the relationship between countries. We were allowed to cover all and every kind of meeting that was taking place at the UN, right from the General Assembly meetings to the Security Council briefings, as well as all of the ad hoc side meetings that get conducted bilaterally between countries and agencies. And since then, it's just been what an incredible experience learning about international relations, understanding world news and politics in such a in-depth, granular, and front row manner. And it's something that helps me in my work, in my life. And it's an internship that, started in 2013, but never ended. And so, Suzy, we were together for one internship batch. And I still fondly remember the 2015 internship when the Crimean invasion was taking place and Russia was, still behaving like the bully that it still is. And they were using sort of energy prices and gas as a political bargaining chip. And that was a very hot environment at the UN. It was the best place to be to actually understand and learn, you know, the ethical behaviors that countries and the unethical behaviors that countries can adopt. And we see all of those things playing out today as well. And I'm so grateful to Dr. Durbak and World Information Transfer for having that experience in the past to now understand the world around me a lot better today.
Thank you so much, Apurv. We had one question from the audience about how do you leverage learnings from World Information Transfer internship in your everyday career and life? And as you said, it started back when we were only like 16 years old, but hasn't ended. So how do you kind of leverage all the experience and learnings?
So beyond the sort of soft learnings that, you know, we learn during the internship, understanding, working at the UN and attending all of the meetings, I think the two core skills that really are integral to the internship are writing abilities and communication skills. And those are two very, very core fundamental hard skills that you will need in anything and everything you do. Because it is one thing to understand things, and it is another thing to communicate it in the most effective manner so that you can impact and affect change through others. And that is something that this internship gives. We attend meetings, we sharpen our listening skills into what exactly is happening, who is saying what, who's not saying what. We assimilate it, we understand it, we analyze it, and then we produce very concise, short briefings about what we learned and understood and what exactly is happening. And it sounds like a simple task, but it really isn't. Try attending a meeting that goes on for 3 hours and then summarizing it down to 150 words while keeping true to everyone's inputs. It is an incredibly difficult skill. And over the years, you know, with interns, we sharpen those skills, and it is useful in my everyday life. I work as a strategy consultant with the company Accenture. The United Nations is my client now, so, you know, still part of the same ecosystem. But at work, you know, it's faster to conduct my work. I'm so much more aware, and I guess it's sort of a processing power that Dr. Durbak and WIT teaches us to absorb a lot of information, make immediate sense of it, and then deliver something that someone else can digest. And I would say those are the two core skills that the internship really hammer down.
Yeah, that's incredible, and amazing how you're able to apply like all your learnings going to the UN meetings as more of an intern and NGO perspective, and now you're consulting them as part of a private company on the other side, and just seeing how all of that works together. Like we've talked about when we were at the conference together, Apurv and I were saying it's amazing to see what private sector and public sector organizations and partnerships can do, and being that in between who has experience at both is super powerful, especially as we work to achieve the sustainable development goals and combat climate change.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. And it was just fascinating to be, you know, for everyone who is not aware, Suzy, me, Ariel, the three of us were on the ground at the UN climate conference in Glasgow that just took place in November. And we were sort of attending meetings, understanding exactly the kind of movement countries are committing to in order to reduce emissions, achieve the 2030 agenda. And in that aspect, private companies started playing a critical role, and business started playing a critical role in that conversation. And I think it's very important that they start acting. You know, some businesses are the size of a European nation today, and they have responsibility not only towards their employees, but they have a responsibility in the environment in which they operate, the products that they produce, how they produce it, why they sell them, and what kind of consumption habits they are fostering amongst people. And I think all of that needs to have a thread of responsibility going right through it.
That's an extremely important point, Perv. the lack of responsibility of many corporations to what they produced and what happens to it is just dramatically explosive from the perspective that people do not think about it, but that it affects all of our lives.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing that up.
We have another question here from the audience about what qualities does a student need to have in order to complete an internship abroad? And I think it would be interesting to hear from both Leonie and Perv on this one, because I think Leonie was kind of virtual completing her internship overseas, and then Perv came to the US to do his internship for a few summers. So would love to hear both of your perspectives.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about before a bit. So I would again stress that to do an internship virtually, and in that case, I think it doesn't make that much of a difference whether it's overseas or not because it's virtual. But you would have to be self-sufficient because there's not always someone on your side who can answer every question at that exact moment. Well, apart from that, I guess you would have to speak some languages to do an internship overseas, and be motivated to learn. I'm not sure if I could say that there's a certain ability or a certain qualification you must have. I think as long as you're motivated and you really want to learn something new, then you can work on acquiring the skills that Apurv just talked about. We didn't all have them when we started the internship. That's why we did the internship, to learn. So I'm not sure if there's certain things I would say you would need to have, except being willing to give it your best.
Yeah, I think Leonie, you covered a lot of the core skills that are acquired by students. The one thing that I would add on top of, language skills and motivation to learn is the skill of curiosity. You have to be extremely curious to excel at the World Information Transfer internship, because this is not an internship at one organization doing one task. It is an internship at an organization like the UN, which is practically a boiled down version of the entire world. You have 193 governments present, along with multiple agencies, all competing for their own interests and sometimes collaborating on agendas and items that cross national boundaries and sort of, spread across cultures. So you have to be extremely curious in that environment to really try and understand, how are things being done? Why is action not being taken? What are the roadblocks? What are the opportunity areas? If you're the kind of person who is fundamentally not curious in that environment, you would just take anyone's word for it. And in a place like the UN, everyone is there to give their word. And everyone is there, very strongly enforcing their word. It's very few people who can cut through all of that and really try and understand what is trying to be delivered. Is it being delivered or not? So curiosity, I felt, was one of the reasons why I found the WIT internship very, very beneficial, because I was like a dog with a bone. And if there was something that I wasn't understanding, I would stop at questioning no one until I found it out.
Amazing. Yeah, I agree with you both and echo the point of, regardless if you're doing a global international internship or if you're doing a local one, just having that curiosity and that self-startedness to learn is so critical for any learning and professional opportunity. So what challenges do we face professionally in our career while also making the time to volunteer and make changes is the question we have. I think from my perspective, definitely balance, as I talked about before. The pandemic taught me the criticality of finding balance just as a person, but then also organizations need to find balance in general. If you strike that anything in excess, it just does not go well. So finding that balance is so critical for me. And I kind of initially in the pandemic struggled with that because I just was working extensive hours. Everything was kind of in one place. There wasn't separation between professional and personal life. And then, but then your personal life was so different at the same time. So and then also having the motivation to volunteer through that and make an impact in people's lives and drive toward and solve issues that you're passionate about. That's a challenge to do all as one person and one day over day. But what I found the best way to do is to do things that you're interested in, because if you're interested in what you're doing a majority of the day or night, you don't feel like you're working. You're kind of working and collaborating with people you enjoy to meet, working on work that you like, and it doesn't feel like it's taking up too much of your day is one. And the other is knowing what's a priority and what should you say yes to, what you should say no to, because to help anyone, you're not helping anyone if you're trying to help everyone, basically, is the tough thing I had to learn as an intern, as a professional. You have to kind of pick and choose where you're going to dedicate your time. And that's a choice that's hard to make initially as an intern, as you have all the options in the world. So that's something you'll navigate. And then the last thing is just to basically get mentors in all of the areas that you're interested in. Like Apurv, Leonie, Ariel, and I are very lucky. We met Dr. Durbak, who's been a great mentor to us and has talked us through all the challenges we faced in our professional careers. And I've found mentors in other aspects of my career at EY as well. So those are the three ways that I kind of stay motivated to volunteer and make changes as a young person, but also as a professional. Wanted to turn to Leonie and Perv, if you guys had anything to add to that one.
I think you make a very important time about time utilization. And I think for everyone in the audience, I want you to do this thought exercise. Think every morning you get $86,400 in a bank account. Every morning, without fail, $86,400 every day in your bank account. You receive it from the second you wake up. And whatever money you don't use, at the end of the day, your bank takes it away. And in the morning, you get again $86,400. Anything that you don't do, the bank takes it away. What would anyone, any rational person, what would they do? They would wake up, they would take all the money out of the bank, wait for the next $86,400 the next day, take that out again. That's how you would proceed. Now, let me tell you, you do get $86,400 every day. It's just not money, it's seconds. Every day you get 86,400 seconds. Every day. It's really up to you how you use it. Anything that you don't use will never come back to you. So when someone asks how you take out time for world information transfer or volunteering or anything that means something to you, I make it count because there is no other alternative. This is something that we fundamentally believe and choose to spend our time on. And if we don't invest that time, either on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, you're never going to feel fulfilled because you're not using your 86,400 in the correct manner. So it's all a game of time, and you should choose to use your time on things that are important to you, that matter to you. And if you do that day in, day out, you'll lead a much, much richer life. And maybe you'll also have $86,000 in your bank account.
Well, that Apurv is a fantastic philosophy to end on. And it will be wonderful if all the other people, especially young people, who have to be coping with the vicissitudes of what's going on our planet. And if they listen to it, maybe they'll use to make the world better. So thank you. Thank you, Suzy. Thank you, Leonie. And of course, thank you, Apurv and Ariel. Thank you too. And I would like to announce that next week our speaker will be Katerina Pavlova, who was appointed as the head of the modular nuclear reactor production to talk about changing energy needs from obsolete to modern. Have a wonderful week. Take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.